Hello, and welcome to another episode of the Mars Perspective. Today is February 8th, 2026, and today I'll be joined by Master Ice Young. Master, correct?
Yep,
Okay, Master Ice Young. He's a karate guy, and I believe he is the vice president of the Manny Reyes Independent Kenpo Karate Federation, correct?
correct.
Okay. Master Young, can you tell us a little bit about your background regarding martial arts?
Yeah, I'll try to make a lifetime as quick as possible. Kind of sum it up. I started at 4 years old. My dad started me in martial arts. Um, I actually learned in the backyard from him, and I took my first official class. I think I was 6 or 7. Started in Kenpo. Ended up with a junior black belt in Kenpo. I went on and I did Goju for a while. Then we did Chi for a while, which is a school of the praying mantis. It's a kung fu school. Moved around. We did jujitsu. So basically, some schools we'd go as far as to get a black belt, and then we'd move around. But I did that all throughout my teenage years. Did a lot of fighting competitions. As I got older, my father was very much into traditional arts, and I decided I wanted to do some reality-based martial arts. I spent time in Ranger Jiu-Jitsu, Jeet Kune Do, Wing Chun, and some other arts. Ended up getting a black belt in Hapkido as an adult, and kind of went on the fight circuit for a while. I ended up getting with a record of 19-1 when I finally retired about 20 years ago. Kept staying in the arts and the different arts that I studied. And my father passed away a couple years ago.
Sorry to hear that, sir.
Thank you. I was working on a fight, and he had severe dementia, and the only thing that he could remember well was all of the fights and martial arts training we did together. So we could still have strong conversations. He couldn't remember something from the day before, the week before, but he had my fights down to a T. So I had challenged what was supposed to be a small fight. And when he got sick, they said he was going to have 8 months. He ended up with 3 weeks, 2 weeks, something like that. And he promised me that I would, had me promised to him that I would do the fight. So I kept that promise to him. And the fight turned out to end up being for NEF, New England Fighting, and ended up being my first real official fight in 20 years. I did a couple of continuous fist fights since then. I've done some smokers, things like that, and I have a title fight coming up this year, which I'm pretty excited about. So, but that's
what promotion is that under, sir?
Zodiac Combat Sports.
Okay, and that's kickboxing, or what is it?
Yes, so they've done a lot of martial arts event. The owner, Sifu Steve, he's such a great guy. The good thing about martial arts is you meet a lot of good people who are helpful. Now, in the 80s, it wasn't like that. I remember there's a couple of times I went to 2 different places and I had to not tell the other one about it because it was so taboo and you'd get kicked out. And now that's kind of changed, and Steve is really good about bringing other arts together. So he's done forms competitions. He's taught at other schools. He travels around. And this will be his organization's first actual kickboxing fight. So I'm really looking forward to this. Every fighter is handpicked for this fight by him personally. So he's going to do this at night, and then the next day will be a full martial arts competition. So it's going to be a great weekend.
So do we know who your opponent is?
He does.
Is it a scary opponent?
Yeah, I wish I knew. The last time I fought for him, I did a continuous fist fighting, and he gave me a giant. I'm 5'10", and I think he was 6'5", 6'6", the guy that I fought. So that was interesting. But he told me he knows who it is, but since it's a personal invite, he's waited to tell me yet. So I'm looking forward to finding out who that is. But he's keeping it quiet at the moment.
Wow. So you're basically going this thing blind.
Yep, at the moment. It's in July, so I got time for him to tell me and figure some stuff out. But when he first talked to me about the idea and told me that he knew who it was, but he was waiting for everyone to accept the invite, where you can't sign up. You know, it almost sounds like blood sport. You got to get that personal invite, and then you're in.
Yeah, you're like Frank Dukes then, huh? So let's move on to some martial arts stuff. That's why we're here. We love the fighting and everything. So you know, do you think it's practical to train? I mean, given what you told me about your history and your lineage and everything like that, do you think it's practical to learn more than one martial art?
I think it's practical, but I think it does make it difficult. Training for my fight, and this isn't just learning. So, kickboxing. I mean, my original fights we called it no holds barred, right? So the game has changed. I only did one fight as MMA in 2006. Everything else was no holds barred.
Hmm.
So I started taking kickboxing. I got my black belt in kickboxing. I think it was last year. So I'm training for my fight. I'm training kickboxing, but I still have my own school where I teach. So I'm doing that. I'm working with my partner Aaron, who owns the other business, who teaches Eskrima, and I did American Eskrima. He does Filipino Eskrima, close but different. So I will tell you, it's challenging. So it is possible, but you really have to have something that separates the two. With Eskrima, at least I got sticks in my hand. With kickboxing, I have heavy gloves, karate empty hands, so that helped mentally trigger it.
Hmm.
Um, so I think it's possible, but I think if they're close, I think it's worse. If you're doing like Taekwondo and Shotokan, I think it's going to mess you up.
Hmm.
But if you're doing something that it's different enough that your mind knows, okay, I'm here. I mean, when I was doing it, I was doing a Japanese art and a Korean art at the same time. And I will tell you, I'd go to one and I'd say key up and they'd go, a what? You got to make sure you
Right.
got your terminology down. You're going to get yourself in trouble.
Well, I actually study Taekwondo and Judo. My eternal grandmaster Myung Kim out of Cleveland, Ohio, passed away before I actually got to meet him. But under his system is what I learned. And Judo, he was a national judo champion in South Korea. He's a very big guy. So judo is ingrained in me. I love it, and Taekwondo. I think they're different enough that one's standing up kind of game, and the other one's a ground or standing up, taking you to the ground type. So that's
Yep.
that's where I fall into line with this whole thing. So, um, go ahead.
Yeah, there's actually a system taught around here. I'm trying to think of the name of it, but Zeke, the guy I mentioned, it's his school. He actually teaches a judo taekwondo combination in a system that he
Interesting.
teaches. So he said they flow together really well. We had a talk, and it sounded interesting. He talked; they're different enough that one leads into the other type of
Hmm.
thing. So it's the first time I'd heard of those two arts being taught together in a. Sometime I'm going to go down and check it out, but it sounded interesting.
Yeah, my grandmaster AJ Perry, my current grandmaster. I studied under Master Darren Warren, and then my grandmaster is Grandmaster AJ Perry. He was a senior student to Myung Kim. So that's I'm still learning the judo, and I'm still learning the tung sudo. So I've got the best of both worlds in my personal opinion. So
Yeah, Tang Sudoza. I've done a little, not a lot, but when I was doing Hapkido, that stuff was always around different Tang Sudo guys, Taekwondo guys, so you get pieces of it.
yes, sir.
Um, Tang Sudo was definitely impressive when I saw it. Again, I'd fill in at a class, and while someone was waiting for another instructor to show up, things like that. But I never actually took the art, but I definitely enjoyed being part of it the times that I were. It was an interesting artist. It reminded me a little bit, which again, it's very limited what I've seen. I did a little Koshinkai,
Hmm.
um, and those guys were kind of like pounding on each other the same way that they did. Very hard style from what I personally witnessed anyway.
So you've been studying martial arts for a long time. Do you think the sport aspect of martial arts has changed the traditional aspect of martial arts, made it better or worse? What's your opinion on that?
I think there's positive and negatives.
Hmm.
I think that anything that brings attention to the martial arts is a good thing, right? But I also think with that attention comes expectation. So people get their small pond, and they become that big fish, and they're like, "Well, that's not right." When they just mean that's not what I do.
Hmm.
So I think that if you're training for a sport, you need to know you're training for a sport. If you're training for a fighting art, you need to know you're training for a fighting art.
Hmm.
So I think that that's something that comes along with it. Um, I love to go on TikTok, and my favorite comment to see, one of my coaches is a ninjutsu instructor, owns a ninjutsu school, and they stopped putting videos up because they'll go, what about his other arm? And you see that everywhere, and people are looking for it now because they're looking at the cage. That wouldn't work in the cage. Look at his other arm. But everyone has to learn somewhere. Everybody has to start. But because of the sport, and they see these top-notch athletes, they think everyone should look that way if you study. And it's like no one's allowed to start from the beginning. So I think it hurts that aspect is everybody wants to, okay, well, I've been here at it for 2 weeks, so why is that not it? Why does he not look like someone in the cage? So I think it hurts for new beginners in a way, but it also brings interest in too. So it's just like that double-edged sword. I think it's got its good, and I think it's got its bad. I also think the promotions matter. Like NEF are very respectful. They're really good. They've added the kickboxing in with their MMA, which is what I did. I did cage kickboxing for them. I have seen some organizations that are really disrespectful to traditional arts, like, well, they're nothing because we're doing this. And I've seen traditional arts that won't allow the sports guys in. So it's really hard. I think it depends on whose hands it's in, but I think attention is good attention if it brings them to the art. But I think it has those negatives and positives depending on whose organization and what their level of understanding is. I think martial artists are all martial arts. So whether you're a cage fighter, traditional, you're a point fighter, what you're doing, we all should be on the same team. But that doesn't seem to happen a lot. So I think it's created more infighting, but I also think it's brought more overall attention to the arts as a whole.
Mm-hmm. No, very good perspective. I admire your thoughts on the subject. So, as martial artists, we all face obstacles in our careers and in our our martial arts trainings and things like that. Be it financial, I can't afford to go to class, or or health, I hurt my knee, or psychological, trying to get over your fear of doing something, or break falls, afraid to. What is the biggest obstacle that Ice Young has faced in his martial arts career?
Oh, the biggest obstacle was probably the new one when it's kind of funny because all the fights I had before, some of the fights would be people I trained next to, like you kind of knew everybody, and usually I don't think I went past one round in my own fights.
Mm-hmm.
And it was different. Everyone says, it's the same, but it's also different. So I was teaching, and I teach pure self-defense. You're looking at techniques that if you're in advanced technique and there's a lot going on, you might have 12 to 15 seconds. When I first started doing kickboxing, and I was training with an MMA guy, Killer Cam, who's like just a phenomenal trainer, and it was an honor to get in and train with him and work with him. But I was toast in like 45 seconds because cardio is involved. I teach a martial art called Kuhapde, which is like a type of street Kenpo, is how Manny refers to it. And you're going to hit someone in the throat, eye gouges, ear claps. So you don't need to hit full power when you're doing a C strike to the throat. You're going to kill someone if you did.
Mm-hmm.
But when you get into kickboxing, right now you got, 12-ounce gloves on. So now you got to hit hard, and all those targets are gone. And you can't end it in 12 seconds unless you're lucky and you punch really good. So, or accurately. So it was a challenge to get in, to work on cardio, to work on a different way of striking because, my system, I was working with a guy named Adam, who was a Krav Maga specialist in the area a little bit. David, who was my Wing Chun guy, who he actually is like 5 generations away from Ip Man. Like he traces his lineage. He goes to Hong Kong, still trains with Ip Man's family. So all of that was very small. You're in close. So when you start getting into a sport aspect, here I am, I'm 50. I don't recover the way that I used to. I don't really have the lung power because it's different. So it was a challenge, and all my kicks were low. So I had to learn to kick head height again. I hadn't done that since I was a teen. So it was a challenge, and there were days where I'm exhausted, and my coach is giving me the puke bucket, and I'm getting ready. I'm like, I got to work in 20 minutes. It's like, why am I doing this? So I was my biggest challenge is getting into shape to hold my own against a 23-year-old at 50 years old. So it was like I'd been in the arts so long, yet there was still new stuff to learn, and it was a challenge. It was worth it, but it was a challenge.
So you just actually segued yourself right in my next question, which I love. You're reading my mind. Um, as we age in martial arts, technology has gotten a lot better when it comes to taking care of your body. I mean, look at people like Tom Brady, or I just interviewed a Olympic gold medalist, Grandmaster Herb Perez, first one of the few Olympian gold medalists in United States in Taekwondo. How do you take care of your body as you age and still train at a high level? I mean, what's your secret?
So one of my secret weapons, and it helps to be friends with a creator that I can really put it is, are you familiar with a wrestler by the name of Diamond Dallas Page?
Love DDP.
So he's a supporter. I think I showed you one of the pictures of him wearing one of my here you go, one of my fight shirts, and I've been doing that since I was 39, and he always calls it the fountain of youth. I think being pliable, being flexible. So I lift weights, I do my martial arts, and I do my DDP yoga, and I do believe you need all those aspects. And I think stretching. When I work with other martial artists, like I'll stretch even in the morning before a home workout. I got a dojo downstairs. I got my school 10 minutes up the road. I'm going to stretch for 15, 20 minutes in the beginning.
Mm-hmm.
These guys do 2 or 3 minutes, ready to go. And they wonder why their elbow hurts. They got a bum knee. I really believe that stretching, flexibility, and all those types of things, being in motion, is very, very important. Mm-hmm. So I think when I ran into other people 10 years younger than me and go, I couldn't fight, I feel exhausted, my back hurts. I believe you got to stretch, you got to lift, and then you got to do like some power type exercises, which punching does. So, but flexibility, I really believe that's the fountain of youth that lets you do everything else you want to do, whether it's hockey, softball, or martial arts.
Right. I'm just working on my flexibility now. As a police officer, I wear a lot of weight on my belt and a lot of weight on my shoulders at all times. And I think it compresses my hips a lot. And I have trouble with my flexibility. So my master lent me a stretching machine. So I'm doing a little bit of stretching every single day, about a half hour in that damn thing. And it's rough, just to say the least. What are some of the common technical mistakes you see at every level, and how would you correct them in martial arts?
Actually, it's funny because the two things I see is overconfidence and underconfidence. And it's funny because you think, well, it can't be both, but it is. So somebody who's overconfident becomes sloppy with their techniques. They're not following through because they're like, I got this. It's fine. I'm just going to walk through this guy. I'm going to walk through this competition. I'm going to walk through this training session. Mm-hmm. And I think underconfidence does the same thing because now they're pulling their kicks. They're not going forward. They're not giving it all because they're so worried that they're doing something wrong, or someone's going to look at them and say, oh, I'm not doing that technique correct. And really the only way to fix it is more time in the sport. I think if you're overconfident, you haven't spent enough time, because everybody can be humbled on any given day. You can be the best fighter. You come in, you're off, you make a mistake, somebody capitalize it. And if you feel like you're at the worst because you're new and this is what it is, then you haven't been around enough new people. So I really think they say time heals all wounds, and I think time fixes all training problems, because you live and you learn, and wherever you're at, you got to keep doing it. You got to work with different people. And I encourage people to, which we talked about earlier, cross-train in at least 2 different arts. Unless you have one of those arts, like I teach the kickboxing and I teach the street Kenpo. So you're going to get 2, but I think that can fix both of those things, because some people need to be humbled and some people need to learn that it's okay to be new. It's okay to not understand and ask a lot of questions. So,
right. So beyond physical techniques, what mental and spiritual disciplines are essential for a true martial arts master?
I think mentally, you have to prepare. Mm-hmm. As a martial artist, there is a zone you need to be in. And now, if we're talking about fighting, that's an even different zone, but you mentally need to be ready for both. And I really feel if you have a lot on your mind, you have a lot going on, and I've seen it happen. I've seen people get hurt in sparring. I've seen people lose fights they shouldn't have lost. I've just seen an example is I have a black belt in Yedo, the samurai sword art. And when we get black belt, you get to a live sword. Now we're doing a simple kata. It's one of the first that I'd learned years ago. And I'm out there and I'm doing it. And all of a sudden there's a big ruckus outside. Turned, looked quick, maybe a second. And one of my students is like, "Hey, you're bleeding." And I cut the webbing in my hand, which with a sword, you're not going to feel it. Those things are sharp. And
Right.
I was bleeding it. So, but I lost my concentration. So that mental concentration, being ready, is going to make and break a class. It's going to make and break a fight. It's going to, even your home training, you can train for an hour and a half if you're not in the zone and you've done 20 minutes worth of work. Or
Hmm.
if you're really in the zone, 20 minutes can do what an hour and a half will do. So you got to mentally be ready and prepare. You can't just walk through it.
Right, right. So let's spin gears here a little bit. So you are the vice president of the Manny Reyes Independent Karate Kenpo System.
Yep.
How did you and Grandmaster Reyes Jr. Link up?
So we had similar friends. So that
Mhm.
was step one. And being a Kenpo guy, like I said, my first art was Kenpo. Then I went back to Kenpo later. And I had my fight coming up, and he fought. Like, he's one of the few Kenpo guys out there that was old school. Ed Parker, black belt, who actually has fought. He's been in cages and been in rings, and bare knuckle fighting, and that sort of thing. And then I'm a big charity guy. I give a lot to charity, do a lot for Ronald McDonald House and things like that. I'm very big on that, and he does that as well. So
Yes.
I'd reached out to him and just said, "Hey, I appreciate what you're doing. We're the same age. Here's my history in Kenpo, and I have a fight coming up too. And I know that when you were this age, your last fight, this guy was this much younger than you. Any advice? Just a simple question." And that was it. He's just that giving guy where all of a sudden he's like sending me videos. He's calling me. We're talking. Then he's like, "Well, how do you do this?" So I'm sending him videos, and then I'm showing him videos of my katas, my techniques. I'm doing things with students. And the more we talk, the closer we become. And he'll tell you, he's like Ice's family now, and I feel the same way about him. And he just kind of from there started talking about what he wanted to do with Kenpo. And I'm like, I'm on board with this. This is something that makes sense to me. So he asked me about being the vice president at that point, gave me what my duties were. And I said yes. And I've kind of just been on board since then.
Yeah, I think. Can you still hear me, sir? I don't know if I lost my camera for some reason.
I can't hear you.
Okay, well we'll just continue. It's no big deal. So, can we possibly see a Manny Reyes Ice Young sparring match in the near future?
It's funny. He plans on coming up here and visiting the school. So I would be honored to do that. I mean, sparring a legend, in Kenpo like that, like I said, Ed Parker, black belt, that would be time I'd have to be mentally ready and not have that like, "Hey, look who I'm sparring." But he comes up to the school, whatever he's game for, I'm definitely game for. Make sure his time is well spent while he's here.
Is this going to be like a backdoor Chuck Norris versus Grandmaster Bill Wallace fight, or is this something that we're going to get to actually see?
I guess that'd be up to him because I'm always game for anything. So that'll be his discretion more than mine.
No, he's a great guy. I know what you mean about, once you get to know him and you link up with him, he truly does become family. And I know this firsthand. He's a great guy. So let's see here. What would you give somebody? What advice would you give to somebody starting their martial arts journey today? Say, John Barhoover, I'm mid 40s, and I want to start martial arts right now. What advice would you give to me?
So it's funny you say that. Since my fight became public, I've sent you some of the articles, and I was in like 3 or 4 local papers, and I did a couple of podcasts, and
Mhm.
people kept asking me that, and it was usually people over 40 saying, "Hey, I want to get started." So the first thing I always say is, what's your martial arts goal, right? If
Mhm.
your goal is to be able to kick over your head and fly through the air, you're not doing Krav Maga. It's not going to happen. If you want to do some fancy kicks and you want to do some great traditional katas, then you want to go back and do some Taekwondo. Taekwondo has some great fancy spin around, jump in the air katas. Like one of the guys I work with, he's an 8th degree, Richard Smith, and I've worked with him. And this guy's in his late 50s, and he's still leaping around and kicking and doing that kind of stuff. So I've sent people say, "Hey, here's where you want to go. You want to do some Krav Maga, it's Adam. Ninjutsu, it's Discovery Martial Arts, you know.
Hmm.
So I always start off with that. The next thing is be prepared to make mistakes and be prepared to not be perfect, and that's part of the journey. I think that a lot of adults, there's two things that I think keep adults from learning is they get in, they make mistakes, they feel like a kid, and they just stop going. They're like, I actually had a guy tell me I started and it just wasn't for me. I tried as hard as I worked on the techniques, but it wasn't for me. I just wasn't able to do it. I'm like, well, how long were you in it? They're like, at least a month. And I'm like, okay. So
Right.
something that takes years to perfect, you're worried in a month you didn't get it, and I'm like, did you talk to your instructors? Well, no, I just stopped going. So I always encourage people to talk to their instructors in between and say, hey, how'd I do today? Get some feedback. Because I think you have a big class. A lot of people aren't getting the feedback. So stop and
Hmm.
ask. Like, instructors, we're not mind readers. If you
Hmm.
feel lost, that's okay to ask for special. I'll offer one-on-one. Somebody wants to have some time on the side. So I talk about that a lot is when you get in there, so you got to have the right art. You got to be prepared to make some mistakes and the right gym. I was talking to an MMA guy who was talking about, I have so many guys in their 20s. I miss the guys at 40s. He uses the term guys at 40 have disposable incomes. I know a lot of guys at 40 who don't, so I'm not sure I agree with that, but I get
Right.
what he was saying. But MMA and martial arts are similar and different. And those kids need to be whipped into shape, and they want that. You're going for a trophy, you're going for a belt, you want to be in UFC. I think that when you bring adults in too, guys over 40, they don't want to have that mentality. You don't need to beat something into them. They're there because they want to be there too. So I've seen some guys who they went into an MMA gym. What they wanted was respect. They wanted more of a traditional martial arts environment. So the right style, the right environment, and it's
Hmm.
okay to make mistakes. And that's a big one. I find a lot of adults don't want to they feel foolish. Meanwhile, everybody there was where they were. So
Hmm.
people think you become an adult and you figure it out. It's just not so. We all just want the same things. We want to look great. We want to be like the Mozart of Kung Fu and just get in there and like, hey, I was there for 4 days and I probably could beat Bruce Lee now, but that is not a logical thing. So
Right. Right. So, looking back over your extensive martial arts career, what is your fondest memory, sir?
You know, I have a fondest new memory and a fondest old memory. And when my dad, so here's a funny story. I told this at my dad's eulogy. That's my dad's eulogy. Is when I went to do reality based martial arts and went off and did that kind of stuff, the Jeet Kune Do and all that. My father was angry, like those are bullies. He was very much against the more modern martial arts.
Hmm.
And I actually did a challenge locally in my area down in Dover, New Hampshire. I challenged 3 black belts, which were on the competition scene. And I was visiting my father, and my mother always loved telling this story. My dad goes, "So, how'd it go with those 3 guys?" And I go, "I won." And he goes, "So you won. So you got each one of them one at a time." And I'm like, "Oh no, I challenged all 3 at the same time." And
Hmm.
my father, minister, I'm a second generation minister. My dad goes, bullpucky, which for him, that's a tough word.
Right.
So that's when I said, thank goodness it's videotaped. And I put the tape in, and my dad stuck his lip out, which is only what he did when he was like, oh my gosh, I can't believe how wrong I was. That was his thing. And he goes, maybe you need to show me what you do.
Hmm.
And he became my student and my best friend. So the man who taught me martial arts in the beginning, I started teaching him. And my daughter became one of my students. So I had classes where I had my daughter and my father together, all in the same room. There was different techniques. I teach kids a little differently, but those memories of having family together like that
Hmm.
was those were some fantastic times. And those are great memories, and eventually my um, brother from a different mother, I always like to say, who became my brother because of martial arts.
Hmm.
So he's training, my daughter's training, my dad was training, with my other students. And I think of that fondly, that martial arts connection that my family has. And recently, my wife became my student, and those have been
Wow.
recent memories. Training her one-on-one.
Hmm.
It did break a rule. I promised I would never flirt with any students, and now I've broken that rule because,
We kind of have
um,
to at that point.
yeah, yeah. So I warned her there might be some heavy flirting going on. So, but that's
No,
that's
that's
been
awesome.
really enjoyable spending that time. Here's something I'm passionate about. Spent my whole life in part of my family's legacy, and now I'm sharing that with her,
Hmm.
and that's been in fact, what I added to the system is when my dad got his black belt, he had to create his own form,
Hmm.
and I took that form and I put it in the system, and my wife will get to learn the form that my dad taught me, and he created. So I'm looking forward to passing that on. Now here's something my dad and I loved, and my dad loved her, but at that point he was beyond training. He would still practice some kicks and stuff. So it's going to be like he's there with us.
Hmm.
But that's been, I think about that now. That's been a great memory, and I know that's something I'm going to carry. But having her in the dojo, having her learning, having her training, that's so. There's an old memory, and then there's a quite recent memory. So those are but fond moments of, again, martial arts just trends beyond just training. The family you have, the family you make, the memories you make, people you meet who become family. It's amazing how much martial arts really brings to your life when you really give into it, so to speak.
You're right. And I just interviewed earlier today. I interviewed Coach Sean Kelly. He's a Kenpo guy down in Florida, not far from Grandmaster Manny Reyes. Actually, he's got a saying, and forgive me, Coach Kelly. I know I'm probably going to butcher this. He says it's not about the belt you wear; it's about the love you share. And I think that's it. Pretty close, pretty sure. But it's a fantastic quote. In martial arts, we should be showing love to one another. I mean, I don't know why some martial artists are so ego driven. I did this, I did this. Your way's garbage. I think every martial art has value, and you got to do what works for you. I mean, I'm pretty good at Taekwondo. I'm very bad at Brazilian Jiu Jitsu because I don't study Brazilian Jiu Jitsu. As a police officer, I don't want to go to the ground if I don't have to because that's the most dangerous spot you can go to, being wearing all the weapons and everything like that. So I train to fight on my feet if I have to. That's just me.
Yeah, and I think that's why people who like different arts, we
Hmm.
should all be on the same side. I love going to other places and train.
Me too.
Um, there's a BJJ school that I've gone to. The guy there, being a pastor, he's a Christian. He's won a lot of medals. And
Hmm.
I went in there, and when if we spar, he's like, nope, I don't want anything of it. He's got a Muay Thai background.
Hmm.
But then when we switch roles and we're on the ground, I'm just kind of like, yeah, I'm glad no one's here right now because like it's pretty ridiculous. And what's cool is some people can't. You talk about two different personalities. I'm not going to name this guy, but my brother, my partner, Aaron Wynn, who's in the school, he's got a fourth degree in Kenpo Jiu-Jitsu, a Screama. He actually learned from Wally J, like some of the big guys. And
Hmm.
so we're there, and this guy's going to help me because my fight was originally MMA. It changed to kickboxing later. I was one of the first kickboxers ever in the state of Maine once it became official and could be licensed through the Combat Authority. So it was MMA. So we're training, and this guy came to the school, and we all talk as martial artists, and sometimes it's meant to be slightly funny. And I made a comment when he was choking me, and I'm like, too bad we weren't on our feet. And he goes, are you saying you can beat me? And I was like, no, I'm sorry. That's not what I'm saying. You're better at this than me. And let's get back to this. And he goes, no, I feel like you think if we were on our feet, you could beat me. And now he teaches only BJJ. That's what he does.
Right.
So he starts pushing. So I'm like, okay. So about the fourth time he fell, he got up, and I have folding chairs where parents or anybody who wants to come and watch can just sit. And he starts throwing folding chairs, going, you cheated. You cheated. And I'm like, how did I cheat? He goes, you just did. So that ended my time with him. And
Hmm.
that's when I found Ebb and Flow down in Standish, Maine, like close where I am, where that guy's just so humble.
Hmm.
And he's like, nope, I don't want to be on my feet. don't want to be on the ground with him. I'm going to tell you that. So there's no way I'm getting down on the ground with that guy. But he knows where he's good at and where he's not. I know where I'm good at and where I'm not. Like Hapkido has grappling at black belt level. I did some Ranger Jiu-Jitsu, but the Ranger Jiu-Jitsu, it's kind of like jaw-breaking arm, all those things you can't do. So it's not my forte. I can get out of some stuff, especially thanks to my time with Ebb and Flow. I'm a lot better than I was, right?
Right.
But we all have our skills, like you were saying, but it becomes a competition, and it shouldn't. I met a guy. I trained with Kathy Long. Do you know who Kathy Long is?
I've heard the name. Yes.
So she was a female champion kickboxer, something like 9-time world champion. And she did some movies. She did movies with the guy who played Kreese in the Cobra Kai. She did some stuff with Chuck Norris. Like, you're talking a top of the line fighter. So I got a chance to go train with her, and I had to travel a couple of hours. Went down with my brother Deacon, and I actually met this guy who now has been working with me. He does things for schools. His name's Paul Cervisi. I might be butchering his name just a wee bit, right? But we were talking about the different martial arts, and I'm going to summarize what he said in my own words, but he basically said, if you're a martial artist, you're not competition, you're family. And that's what he's getting. That's a little bit longer how he put it.
Right.
But he's somebody now that I've made a connection with, that we talk, and he has his own podcast too that he does, which he had Kathy Long on it for that. So that's the right attitude. His attitude was fantastic, and but there are these people that are just especially like there's so much BJJ of we're the only art, we're the only art, we're the only art, and it went through that phase in the 80s where karate was the only art. So it's not like that's new. It just seems there was a period, I don't know if you remember, what was it, 10 years ago, when Krav Maga was the only art you should know, and that's the superior art. So, and I told this movie came out, this BJJ guy, have you seen it, called Born a Hero? Have you seen that movie?
I have not seen that yet, no.
It's a great, well-done movie. Sean Patrick Flannery, who's a good actor, Christian, done a lot of Christian movies. So he did this love letter to BJJ. And in the movie, he runs into a Kenpo guy, he runs into a Krav Maga guy, karate guy, and he defeats them all. Like, there's even one scene where he goes, you're going to throw a fist. I'm going to grab it. I'm going to roll you around. I'm going to take your back. And there ain't a damn thing you can do about it. I'm like, okay, Billy Jack. But, like, that's... I was telling someone, it's like, that's how it really is. I'm like, go to the 70s and watch Kung Fu movies. And that whole thing, my tiger crane can break your tiger claw. Like, that's not new. That's new. That's not new. That's been around for a while. So what is new is the guys who go, let's change techniques. Let's go back and forth. Let's learn from each other. That's still a new concept, but I think that's the correct concept. In my humble opinion, we all can learn from each other. I learn from students. I have brand new students, and that will I'll see something from their background and go, that's interesting. Let's work on that. So I think there needs to be more attitude like Paul's in today's martial arts. And there are, but you still have, like what you were talking about, those people who, this is what, well, I don't want to do that. That's not where your job, if you're security, if you're in an environment where you're around 6 people rolling around on the ground, it's not where you're going to want to be. If you're bouncing and you got a team with you, you want to learn more holds because you don't want to get sued for hitting somebody. So every martial art has its place. I don't believe there are bad martial arts. I do believe there are bad martial artists, but I don't believe there are bad martial arts. Everything has its place and its purpose.
Right. No, I get it. Well, it was fantastic having you on the show. 40 minutes, 50 minutes isn't enough time to get dive deep in with somebody. So I would ask that hopefully this isn't going to be our last conversation, sir.
No, I'd love to come back. I mean, like I said, I have the fight coming up. I've now been training Muay Thai with a couple of guys. I have a coach named Dustin and a guy named Andy that we call Ruka. I've been doing some Shotokan. A friend of mine named Randy, who's an excellent martial artist. So as we get closer to the fight, after the fights, whenever you want, I love talking martial arts. If you talk God or martial arts to me, we're probably going to be going for hours if someone lets me do it, because I don't shut up on those subjects. So
we can do both. I mean, you can mix religion with martial arts. I truly believe that. I don't think you can't have one without the other. Honestly, that's
agreed.
My opinion.
I agree with that.
You want to leave us with any parting words today, sir?
You know what I would say is, being a martial artist who's 52 years old and fighting, that I had stopped. I'm back competing. And don't let age stop you. Brandon, people like to say age is just a number, to which I always tell them it's just a word and watch them try to figure out that pun. But it's one of those things that never stop, keep training, figure out what you can do. But I know it's a saying people have said it many times, but I do agree with you. You don't get old and stop. If you stop, you're going to get old. So keep going. It's never too late. Go back to school, start softball. I had a guy tell me the other day, 88 years old, and he's playing hockey with a bunch of 50-year-olds, and he had a heart attack a year ago. So you
Wow.
don't have to stop. Just make sure you do it responsibly, but don't stop. Chase what you want to chase. We're not here for a very long time. So the time that we have is shorter than younger people really think. So go out and do it.
Absolutely, sir. Well, it was very enjoyable talking to you today, sir, and getting to know who you are and what you stand for and what you're about. And I want to say the best of luck to you on your fight. But we're going to have you on before that happens. July is a long way away. So,
It is.
as always, folks, like, share, follow, subscribe to the YouTube channel, The Martial Perspective. That way we can keep telling fantastic stories about fantastic martial artists. We'll see you soon. Tung Su.